Hello everyone and welcome to this fourth and final episode of our series on how to create a Twitter app with Vue.js, Framework 7, PhoneGap and Webpack. Now in this last episode we're going to use the app that we created in our previous episode, which you should look by the way if you haven't seen them before, by clicking on the link on the right top corner and deploying this app to PhoneGap, which means we can install it on an actual device and run it as a native app, which is pretty cool. So let's get started. Now, in order to use PhoneGap, you first have to install it. I already have it on my computer, but if you don't, just install it first. Currently, we're in the same directory as we've been before, which is just our web app that we've created before. And now we're going to create the PhoneGap app. So we're going to type PhoneGap, create, and then the name of the app. So in this case, I'm just going to call it PG for PhoneGap, but you can call it whatever you want. All right, so let's see. So there's a new folder being created, which is called PG. And this is already our PhoneGap application. Now, if you're familiar with PhoneGap, you know that all your JavaScript, HTML and stuff goes into this www directory. And there's already a demo app in there, but we're not gonna need this. So I'm just gonna, remove all of this stuff here, except, hold on, we need to save the res folder and just copy it or move it one folder up. Actually, one more. We need it in our root web app directory. So move rest one more. Yes, okay. Now let's go back to our PhoneGap app and our directory. Okay, now remove everything from this directory. Oops, like this. Okay, now it's empty. And we can work with this. Now let's go into our code. And the first thing we're gonna work on is the twitter.js file. So let's go to our source directory, go here. Now the reason why we're doing this is here at the bottom, remember, this is the callback when we came back from our Twitter authentication, and Twitter will send us back to our local host, which is already a problem because there's no HTTP service in the PhoneGap app. It's all served via a file URL. And also a redirect is pretty bad because we're completely losing control of our app. So what's actually a lot better is to use in-app browser. So let me show you what that is. PhoneGap in-app browser. PhoneGap in-app browser is actually just a plugin and in most cases already pre-installed. And all you have to do is just call window.open and give it the URL which you want to open. And what it does is it will open a new layer, which means a WebKit layer on top of your app, and load the website that you pass in as a parameter. So we're going to use this, and first thing we do is just comment this out. Whoops. And call Cordova dot in a browser dot open, and then we pass in our authentication URL, and then we tell it that we want to open this in a new layer, and then the in-app browser function or the open function return a reference to this new layer, And to this layer, we can attach a event listener. Now, the reason for this is we need to know when this layer changes its URL, and also when it gets closed and stuff. So attaching event listener is a good idea. And the first one we're going to use is load start. Load start means that it gets fired. Actually, I can show it here. Load start event fires when the in-app browser starts to load URL. So this is pretty good. And since we are on ES6, we're going to use an error function here. All right. Before we continue here, there's one more thing we have to change. As I've said before, this localhost URL is not valid anymore because we're now in a PhoneGap application, and there's no such thing as an HTTP service in PhoneGap. So let's remove this, but we still have to tell somehow Twitter to which URL the service has to redirect back when the authentication was successful. Now, since we don't actually have such an URL, we're just going to use the blank page and append a parameter, which we call TwitView, which is just the name of our app. So when Twitter redirects us back to this URL, we know that the authentication has finished and we can do something now. Okay, so we're going to use this trick and check now what page has been loaded here. So we can use the parameter argument here and check for the URL. Oops. If we're back on this page. Okay. All right. Before we continue here, there's one more thing we have to do. Remember this query string function. Now this method was required to get the get parameters out of our URL. Remember these tokens, these ones here. We use query string and get these tokens from our URL. Now the problem now is that query string.js uses the location of the currently loaded website, which is our PhoneGap app. But this is actually not the URL that we need to fetch because we're using a new layer. So we need to patch this. I'm going to remove this. And we can just pass in a string like this and use this as the string to search in. And we can just call our query string from wherever we want and pass in the URL that you want to pass. Now this query string method is configured to start automatically, so we need to remove these brackets so we can call these on your own. And now we can go ahead and use this new function. So we're going query string and enter search string. Now we need to get our search string somehow. So what we need to do is we need to find the position of our query, which is very simple because in this case we can just use this part here. See, this is the beginning of our query. And Twitter will append all their tokens after this. So query string will pass everything after the question mark and just parse out our tokens for us. So now that we have the position where the query string begins, we can define our search string, and we're just gonna cut out our query. So now we can, as we did before, like here, get our tokens out. I'm just gonna cut this. And replace the query string object with the result from our query string call, which is QS. And that's pretty much it. Now we have back our tokens, although we're not in our original browser window anymore, we were in a layer. Now, I'm sure this must be pretty confusing to you, so don't worry, I think it will be clear in a few seconds. The next thing we're going to do is just close our layer and then do the authentication. And for this, we're going to define a new function which authorize and pass in our tokens. So let's define our new function. And for the moment, we're just gonna alert something like OK here. Okay, so far so good. Now I think this code could already run in our PhoneGap application. So let's do a first deployment. In order to do this, we need to copy all the files that we need to our PhoneGap application. And for this, we're just gonna create a new npm script. And we're gonna call this just PG for PhoneGap. And what we're going to do is first we're going to call npm run build. So we're going to call this script, which will create our bundled JavaScript. And then we call a new script, which we're going to call clean or pg clean. This will just remove everything from our www directory in PhoneGap. This one here. And then we need another script, which is copy. In our copy, we'll copy all the files that we need into our www directory. And at the end, we're going to run our application. So we're going to call this pg run. Okay. So let's define our scripts here, which will be pg clean. Now we have to be a little bit careful at this point not to remove any important parts of your file system. So double check the path is correct here. And then we have pg copy. And we just copy everything from our this folder, the build.js file. Now this build.js file gets created from our npm run build call. Okay, so when we run this file gets created. Then we're gonna need our res folder. Now remember that we moved our res folder just at the beginning of the video from our PhoneGap app to outside. Now the reason for this is we need this res folder in order to create a new build with PhoneGap. But since we're cleaning the www directory, it would be lost. So we're backing this up outside and just copy it back when we need it. Now what we also need is our index.html file, of course. We need our graphics folder, which is this one. I think there's only our Twitter logo in there. So yeah, that's that. And we need our library folder. Currently, we only have CodePad there. And then we're just going to copy everything to our PhoneGap directory. And I think this should already work. So let's go to our terminal. And let's do npm run pg. So it has created our build file. Oh, there's an error. What's wrong? Missing script pg run. Okay, we forgot to create another script, which would be the last one here. Now, what pg run does is just create a new build for PhoneGap. And to do that, we just call PhoneGap run and then iOS. This will tell PhoneGap to start an iOS simulator and run our app for us. But since we can only do this in a in a PhoneGap directory, we first have to cd in there and then run it. Okay, so let's try again. Vue.js has been created. It's copying all the stuff now. And as you can see, PhoneGap is now starting Cordova to run the emulator. And there it is. Now this takes some time, so I'm just gonna fast forward here. So the PhoneGap app has started with the simulator, but for some reason the whole page is blank, which is not good. So let's see what's wrong. And I think the reason is that we haven't worked on this part yet and that we have removed our OAuth verifier. So for the moment, we're just gonna comment this out and run again. So for some reason, it's still not working. So let's see what's wrong. Oh yes, I remember. There's one thing you have to know about Cordova. Cordova requires a specific JavaScript file, which is called Cordova.js. Oops. Now, if you wonder, what's actually the difference between Cordova and PhoneGap? Now, Cordova is basically just the engine which runs behind PhoneGap, and PhoneGap is a product from Adobe, which is built on top of Cordova. Now, you can think of Cordova to PhoneGap as WebKit to Safari is. Okay? And Cordova also is an open source project from Apache, the Apache Foundation. So it doesn't really have something to do with Adobe. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And let's go to our main.js file. Whoops. Because there's one more thing that you have to know. Now, when the application starts, we don't actually know yet when the device has imported all the libraries that we need, which can take some time. But PhoneGap has an event for this, which is called device ready. So we're going to call document.add-event-listener, and we use the event device ready and define a new function. And now we move all our initialization code into this event listener. Okay, so we call this only if the device is actually ready and not before. So let's try this again. So still nothing. Oh, now I got it. All right. Yeah, actually quite simple. We forgot to reference our build file. We need to change this to build.js because now our new build.js file is directly in the www directory and not in our dist directory anymore. So I think this could work. And there we go. Our app has started and maybe we can even search. Let's try this. Yeah, search works. So we can click this. And as you can see, the whole app is running in our iOS simulator. So for example, I can click the home button and we have a real working application. So what you can do now is you can also run this whole thing on an actual device. So I'm not going to bother with that right now because the simulator is pretty much 100% accurate. But yeah, so we need to fix a few things. Now, the first thing that I noticed that our authentication is not working. And also we're missing the icon here on the top right. So we have to fix this somehow. So let's go back to our twitter.js and uncomment the code that we've used before. Now that we've moved our OAuth verification into down here, we can remove the test for it. So let's get rid of our if statement. And now we can remove all our code into our authorize method. And also remove the else statement. Now this code will be executed immediately after the application runs, which is okay. And let's try again. And there we go. As you can see, we're authenticated. Now the reason why I'm already authenticated is because my simulator is caching the previous authentication that I've done before I record the video. So in order to flush everything, you can just call local storage.clear, which will remove all the data that has been saved to the local storage.set item. So run this. Okay, now everything is flushed and we can start with a fresh app. So we need to comment this out one more time. Now what we're actually missing is the login layer. Remember when the first time we start the app and we were not logged in yet, there should be a big white layer where you can log into Twitter. So we need to show this one. And the reason for this is we were applying here our event listener to show the login screen. But this is not enough currently because all we know at this point is that the DOM is ready, but we don't know if our device is ready yet. Remember in the main.js file, we bound to device ready in order to check if the device is ready. And we have to do the same thing here in Twitter.js. Now, since we're calling the window.f7.login screen multiple times, we're going to do this in a separate function. So let's define a new function, which is called show login screen. And move this in here. And we can already call it. Paste this in here. And I think we have this multiple times. So let me see. Okay. Just with this one then. So show login screen. And before we continue here, there's one more thing. Actually, it's a bug that we need to fix before we go on. Remember that when we checked our home timeline, we checked the error argument if there are any errors. Now, there's also a chance that this error argument is empty and we have actually an error in our reply. So now in this case, we also need to show the login screen. So what we're going to do is we say error or and check if there's a reply. And if the reply actually contains an error, then we set logged in to false. And also we show the login screen. Okay, good. Now we need to implement our show login screen function. So what we need to do here is we first need to check if our document is ready already. So ready already. Document.ready state equals complete, or document.readyState equals loaded. Now in this case, the DOM content loaded event has already been fired. And thus we don't need to bind a new event listener. And we only need to bind this event if it's not ready yet. Okay, so like this. Now remember that we also need to check for device ready. So we're going to do this. Document.add event listener. Check for device ready as a function. And if this one is ready as well, we're good to go. Now let's do the same thing down here. And that's pretty much it. So let's run our app. Okay, so now we finally have our login screen back. There seems to be a small styling issue, but I'm not going to bother with that right now. Probably some margin or padding is too much here. And we just go on. And now you see what I actually meant with the login layer. Now this method has been called in-app-browser.open, and this open function opens this layer. See? And now I'm on twitter.com, and Twitter asked me if I want to authorize this app. So I'm going to do this, authorize it. And now the Twitter API has redirected me back to the about blank page that we have defined at the beginning of our video, which is this one. And now we should be somewhere over here. So for some reason, this is not running, and I don't know why. Oh, I see it. It's not params, it's param. All right, let's try again. Try again. Authorize. All right, now we are back in our app, but it's still showing this loading indicator. So we need to remove this because we don't need it anymore. So let's go into our home.vue file, and there should be somewhere over here. So when we sign in, it's showing this preloader, but we don't need that. So remove this and run it again. Okay, so we are back in our app now, but the sign-in layer is not gone, and that's because, let's go back to our Twitter.js file. Yes, see, we're passing in our tokens, but we forgot to specify these in the parameter list of our function. And actually, the last thing that we have to do is change this line, because changing the location to a slash won't be enough for PhoneGap. We actually need to call location.reload in order to completely reload the application. So let's do this. Okay, now it's worked. See? And in order to verify if everything is working correctly, we're going to flush our local storage one more time. Okay. And remove this and just do a normal run without flushing. All right, so let's see, sign in, authorize, and there we go. So now we can see our home timeline, we can see our tweets, we can search for Mr. Trump, and these also work. And yeah, there are just two things we need to fix. Now, the first thing is we need to get back our icon. And the second thing is, in our index.html file, we are referencing all these files from a CDN. Now, in a true web application, this is actually pretty good because using a CDN will increase performance. But in a PhoneGap application, this does not help in any way. Actually, it decreases performance because the CSS files and the scripts need to be loaded from the web. So what we want is we want to package these into our application so it's already there in the file system and we can run it right away. So what we need is the Framework 7 library. So let's go back to our terminal and run npm install Framework 7 and save it to our package.json file. Okay, so now we have it in our node modules folder. Here, see, we have Framework 7 and the Framework 7 icons folder. And let's just copy this stuff into our PhoneGap app, which we can do very easily using an npm script. So the first thing we do is define a new script and call it Framework 7 copy resources. And what this does is it will call two other scripts. One will be to copy Framework 7, and the other one will be to copy the Framework 7 icons. Okay, so let's define the scripts. Okay. Now this is really easy. All we need to do is just actually hold on this. Where is this? Oh, yes. So now we need to do is just copy from our node modules folder the Framework 7 library into our PhoneGap directory. Actually, I don't think we need this. And then we do the same thing and copy Framework 7 icons, oops, into the PhoneGap 7, the PhoneGap lib directory. Now remember, this lib directory already exists because we have called PhoneGap copy before, and which will copy the lib directory. Now the last thing we do is run our new script, which is f7 copy. Sorry, I mean f7 copy res, which will copy all the resources for Framework 7. And now we can just go back to our index.html file, and we should be able to get all the resources from our local file system. So let's change the references here. Can also change this. If I remember correctly, this is in a dist folder. But let me check on this real quick. Framework 7 dist CSS, yes. 7 dist, okay, this is all right. And this is in the icons directory. CSS, all right. Now this line here, this will actually import the Framework 7 script, but we don't have to explicitly import it here because we can bundle it together into our build.js file using Webpack. And to do this, we just open our Webpack configuration file, which is here. And we define a new alias, which we call framework 7. And just use this path here and define where our framework 7 library is. So it should be framework 7 dist, I think this is JS. Let me check real quick. Framework 7 dist JS framework 7 min.js, right? Okay. And as the last step, now that we have defined our alias for Webpack, we have to import it. So let's do that. From. All right. So I think this should work. Let's try it. Yes. So this is looking very good. As you can see, we have our framework 7 icon. So this means the import has worked and everything else is also working. So this is very good. So I think we're at the end of our tutorial. Actually, there's one more thing we could try. I'm not sure if it works. As you can see, we are using the iOS version of our app in an iOS simulator. And there's a chance that we can use material design. We need to import, yes, we need to import the material styles over here. So let's do this. Actually, let me check the path is correct. Material, yes. Try again. So here we are. We are still using the iOS simulator, but we can use the complete Android material design user interface. And we can, if you want, run this whole thing on an actual Android device using PhoneGap. Now, I'm not going to show this in this video, maybe in a different one. But if you're interested in that, just go to the PhoneGap documentation page. And you will find all the information in the Getting Started tutorials section. So just read out through all these. But yeah, I think this is really cool because using the power of Vue.js, we have created a full application using techniques like data binding or the idea of components. And with one code base, we can create full native apps using Framework 7, both for iOS and Android, with two different designs, having a full native look. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this whole series. If you did, please click on the like button of this video. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, just go to twitter.com/timoernst. And if you want to stay updated with new videos that I post, just click on my face down here in order to subscribe to my channel. Now, in the next episode, I might post a video about the differences between Framework 7 and Ionic. Now, if you're interested in that, please let me know in the comment section below. And yeah, see you next time. Bye.